do I call to order or do you call to order?
You called order and then I do the roll call. So,
Okay, the meeting is called to order.
Committee Member Kane.
Here.
Committee Member Charles.
Here.
Committee Member Chasty, I believe, is on his way. Committee Member Goldman.
Here.
Committee Member Sala.
Here.
And Committee Members Baker and Montauk can't make it today. So Committee Member Goldman is taking over as chair.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the minutes from September 6th. I'm gonna move to-
And there should be a couple copies on the dais if you need them.
You emailed these previously, right? Here.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion. Actually, I wasn't here. I can't. It was a stroll week.
I'll
I
second.
moved if someone will second.
I'll second. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, minutes are approved. Great. Public comment? Anybody?
One abstention, the record, for that.
Oh,
Technically,
one
yeah.
Yeah, one abstention.
Okay, thanks. Is there anybody here want to make a comment? Any of our guests? No? Okay. Staff and committee member announcements, reports and updates.
Oh, before we get too far into the agenda, I was just going to ask, we have the holiday lighting on the agenda for this week. If we could move it back a little bit, will that be okay? Okay, perfect.
Bring it back like later in the meeting.
Later in the meeting, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so staff announcements.
Yeah, I have some updates. Just as a reminder, the Advisory Body Appreciation Event is the evening of Thursday, October 18th at 7 p.m. at the Albany Community Center. We'd love to see you all there. And then, Anne, I think you have an update on Complete Streets.
Yes, we held our Complete Streets pop-up event on Saturday, September 22nd. We had great turnout. We partnered with Flowerland in that effort. So we had our display boards there, and then some straw bale at the intersection of Pomona and Solano to simulate traffic calming. We also had a temporary crosswalk that we put there as well. We had a lot of foot traffic and a lot of positive feedback overall. And right now, we are going to take it to Planning and Zoning Commission later in October, and it's on schedule to go for council review in the new year.
Awesome.
And I'm moving on. In regards to Target, we have an application pending right now. Target is interested in reconfiguring their parking lot and also demoing the garden center that's there. That portion of the building has been vacant since 2014. They no longer have any use for it, so they're proposing to demo the garden center, put parking there instead, and then do a parcel map. So they call it their overflow parking area, and it's 160 parking spaces. They would sell that off separately to a potential business / developer. So there would be some future opportunities there on that parcel. And one other announcement, I learned today that Wildcard Brewery, they are going to open tomorrow.
Oh,
So if you're looking for a new place to check out this weekend, they are going to be open.
Can you remind us what types of usage is allowed in that CMX zone where next to Target?
Yeah, so the way our code is structured, all uses in that zoning district require a conditional use permit, but uses including offices, retail, food services, that type of thing, auto sales, that's all, with a conditional use permit can be, that can occur in that zoning district.
Do we expect that is that going to be like a sort of a popular site? Is there expected to be competition or not?
So Target, what they explained to me is they're kind of looking for a complementary use. And I think in that vein, they were looking for a food use. And I think when that plan was originally done many years ago, it was anticipated that there would be a food use there. So, we'll see what kind of interest they get once that parcel becomes available for purchase.
May I ask what the future of that intersection is, particularly at Gilman and East Shore? I understand it's going to be closed.
So, yeah, and I'll just kind of preface this by saying I'm sort of on the periphery of that, but I do know right now it's being studied by Alameda County Transportation Commission. They are doing the environmental review for that, and I believe the plan is with that closure, 2nd Street in Berkeley would be upgraded. And so if you were coming westbound on Gilman, you could turn right onto 2nd Street and you would have signage that would direct you into Albany to access East Shore.
Okay, presentations. Alan?
Wow, is it that time already? All right, well, I'll be quick. These slides have subliminal messages in them, so I ask that you just kind of stare at them and absorb as best as you can. My name is Alan Kane. I am also the executive director of the Solano Avenue Association. I'm their paid staff person. We only have about 5 slides here, so I'm not going to bore you. So I'm going to just follow the basic writing format of who, what, where, when, why, and how. Who? Solano Avenue Association has a 15-person voluntary board of directors and 1 beyond full-time staff person, which is me. I clock in last year about 60 hours or 50 hours a week, sometimes upwards of 60, 70. But the average is actually 50. The SAA board is made up of diverse professionals. Most are business owners on or near Solano Avenue, and the members of the SAA help fund the cost of the festival while enjoying other benefits of being a member of the association year-round. Of course, the Solano Avenue Association, what, where, and when. Quickly, the Solano Avenue Stroll is a free event that's held in Albany, Berkeley, California. It's one of few festivals statewide that cross into 2 adjoining cities and jurisdictions. In fact, we spent a few minutes today just looking for any event that's in 2 separate cities and couldn't find any, doing some initial searches. It's every 2nd Sunday in September, shortly after Labor Day, sometimes a week after it, sometimes 2. And it's known famously in the Bay Area as one of the most traditionally loved community events. How? The primary organization of the festival takes roughly 600 hours, which does not include volunteer hours. That's roughly 3 months of full-time work. Just sitting there calling sponsors. You can imagine what's involved. In 2018, our hard expenses for the festival were just over $35,000. I distributed actually a sheet to everyone in this room, which kind of outlines some of our higher expenses. We throw communications on there just to kind of show you like $250 just on walkie-talkies. Now, the other expenses on this sheet don't reflect anything below $500, but walkie-talkies are just on there because it's a cute expense. There are many other expenses covered in the $18,000 figure there, from printing for the day of the event, yellow vests for the day of the event. The list just goes on, and the sum for 2018 was roughly $18,000 in ancillary expenses. And why do we do this? So we bring fans and consumers, both locally from neighboring communities, to enjoy both existing businesses and showcasing new businesses on Solano Avenue. Sorry for that typo. Outside vendors are used to offset event costs to the SAA members. If every business on Solano actually were to contribute into the production costs of this event, I mean, obviously you can see the expenses get to be pretty high, and that $53,000 does not actually cover any sort of labor costs, right? So it's not a cheap endeavor. Some quick numbers before we go on to questions. In 2013, we hired 2 teams of teens. One standing at Santa Fe and Solano, the other group standing in front of what used to be the Oaks Theater. They stood there from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and basically asked everybody that walked by what their zip code was. Of that poll, 73% attended from Alameda County, 22% from Contra Costa County. It kind of shows us that we do have this kind of divide. Although on the right-hand column, you'll see that 94530 is one of the top 3 zip codes in 2013. All the other zip codes past that were all Berkeley. So it shows that Albany, or in terms of the Solano Stroll, there's a small disconnect with Richmond, Pinole, Hercules, and a lot of that area that we now draw from in terms of marketing. Future marketing, we now work to draw people from those areas, right? So the event features almost 200 nonprofit organizations who are centered in the local area. Alphabetically, that ranges from the Albany Library to Zillow. Actually, that's not a local organization, but there's so many organizations there that use it to fundraise, to get volunteers, and they all consider it one of the flagship or one of their standard events that they do throughout the year to fundraise and do outreach. 75 performance groups, that means bands. So a band can have up to, well, in one case, in the La Peña Community Chorus, that's 80 members in that community chorus. So I'd like to say that the Solano Stroll also provides employment and opportunity for probably in the neighborhood of 300 performers, really, maybe even, actually, sorry, 500 to 600 performers if you start doing the math. Katie's dance studio, I think, has 50 kids. And it's the once-a-year opportunity for Solano Avenue businesses to enjoy tourist-level foot traffic. The street was packed, especially this year. Considering regional competition, our numbers are still very high. I think part of it is it's a free event, and of course, it's family atmosphere. We don't have beer gardens or anything like that that may create a disturbance. And not to mention 150 crafters who hand make their items. And so this area is by Safeway. And everybody there everyone there has been reviewed. They send in pictures to the association of them producing their craft, and so they're hand vetted. And so we're proud of that. To your left is a poster that we have from September 15th, 1982. So we don't have a lot of posters before that. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll find that the Solano Stroll was sponsored by Fidelity Bank. And that was, of course, where Chase Bank is now. In the center is our logo, and to the right is the current artwork for the event. We're very proud of this year's artwork. In fact, if the details are kind of lost on the there's a tremendous amount of work that was done on the outside of the poster. They get lost, defocused, let's say, for the primary section of the artwork. And what you're actually seeing on that right-hand side image is outlines that were hand-drawn by the artist of businesses on Solano Avenue. So for instance, you can kind of see in the upper left the Safeway Community Market, which is formerly Andronico's. That's hand-drawn in the poster, and most people didn't notice these things.
Why is that expense left out for this year?
For which one? Good question. I love it. So Ian Ransley, who's a local artist who came to us in 2013 with some poster concepts that we did not grasp back then. We were reapproached by Ian, who lives on Ramona, right by Solano, and we feel that he knocked this poster out of the park. And the deal that we made was that his first year would be free as we get to know each other and kind of figure out what's involved. And next year there'll certainly be a line item there for sure. So I'm here for questions. I know that we do have a meeting to conduct, but I'm certainly willing to answer any questions anyone has, or you can hit me up later. That being said, so, thank you for all of us that have good vision, or maybe not so good vision. In the lower right-hand corner of that poster are our sponsors, and that includes the City of Albany, the City of Berkeley, Albany Subaru, Allstate Insurance, Mechanics Bank, Belmont, and Golden Gate Fields. And I will close out this presentation by saying we're very proud of our sponsor group, and this year all of our sponsors are basically within a 10-mile radius of Albany, so we're very happy about that.
So this is the largest event of its kind in California. We've gotten up to...
Single day.
Yeah, we've gotten up to 300,000 people on the street in a given day. And when you get that big, 300,000, the street doesn't move well. It's really packed. It's hard to actually negotiate the street. It works better at about 250. You get down to about 225, there's plenty of room. People move freely. We figure people turn over during the day. It's the only place you can go where there's 300,000 people, and if you lose a camera, it gets turned in, and you can actually find it in Lost and Found.
Well, Robert brings up an interesting point, too, with the crowd size. you can find yourself, we like large numbers because the vendors do well, obviously, particularly food vendors and that kind of thing. At the same time, when the crowd is that dense, you find yourself kind of navigating and walking and looking down in front of you to make sure you don't step on anybody, whereas a lighter crowd allows you to actually stroll the stroll and not navigate it. So now as you're walking down the street, you're kind of looking around instead of watching to make sure you don't step on anybody. So that number is really important in terms of the character and feel of the event.
And probably the other thing that you probably, to those of you who care enough about the history of this, there was a small stroll that happened between when it started in about 1988 or 89, and it used to draw maybe 15,000, 16,000 people. And it was primarily local people with tables and some garage bands that were awful and loud, and a lot of drinking. Even the association would sell alcohol at the event. There'd be fights by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There'd be groups of drunk teenagers getting into fist fights. It was a bad event. And it was when we took it over in the late 80s and the early 90s is when we changed it. We professionalized it. We got rid of all the garage bands. We got small bands. We de-emphasized any of the amplification. And we started making it much more family friendly, and we eliminated all the alcohol. And we did that, and we made a few other plans. We made a 5-year plan that took us from about 15,000 people to 125. And that took us about 3 or 4 years to turn it around. And from there, we built it to 150, 200, 300. When we hit 300,000 people, we said, it's too crowded. It's just, we have to throttle it back. One of the most important things we did was professionalize how we operated. Because once you've got 15,000 people and a bunch of neighbors, it's not a big deal if something happens. But if you've got 150,000 to 300,000 people and something goes wrong, they expect you to be professional and they want you to be able to take care of it. So we changed the entire nature of the event. And so there was this kind of local merchant sort of ad hoc kind of thing that happened up till about 1989 or 88. And then from about 89 or 90 forward was what we do. And they're like 2 night and day events. And that's why we got to the size we did.
Well, I was mentioning the sponsors. I was also trying to come up with a fun fact to kind of just talk about tonight. And maybe you can answer this. I'm unable to locate a 13th Solano Avenue stroll. And I know that we're calling this our 44th, and next year is going to be our 45th, and we're going to stick by that. But I actually cannot find information for a 13th Solano Avenue stroll. Do you know if there was?
Don't know.
Maybe they're superstitious.
So it looks like they called the 14th, the 13th, the 14th.
No.
That's what it looks like to me. But anyway, just
Well, there's a building in San Francisco, 995 Market Street on the corner of 6th and Market that does not have a 13th floor.
there you go.
I worked in it. It has no
All
13th
right.
floor.
Well, thank you so much for your time, everybody. Thank you to the city for sponsoring this awesome community event and for giving me an opportunity to detail it. Thank you.
Do you have copies of these old posters that you have represented here?
They're on this keychain. In fact, yeah, we have everything. We're missing 76, 77, 78, 79, and 82. But other than that, we have them all. The Historical Society, I think, has one of the early 80s ones.
I just have a really quick question.
Sure, yeah, totally.
Because you mentioned the artist who prepared the poster this year. It sounds like you work with different artists over the years and commission them to do the posters. Is it based on a theme, or is it just kind of their aesthetic?
You know, I would be incorrect if I said this was a grand plan of some kind.
Okay.
I think in this, art is one of those things where no matter what caliber it is, roughly 50% of the people are going to like it and 50% of the people are going to hate it. And so it's always been kind of a moving target. Clearly, the prior administration had a lot more artistic qualities in their posters. We kind of went a little bit more commercial, I guess you could say, and we'll admit to that. But it's a commercial event, and it has commercial expenses, and we need to promote the people who invest in it. So in this particular case, frankly, Ian was a guy who ragged on the poster every year. It would come out, and he'd come up to me and see me on the street and go, "What was this?" And I go, "Well, I'm just part of a committee. I just am the executive director." And every year he would say, "I'm willing to do this, I'm willing to do this." And about every 3 years, I would bring some of his designs to the group. And they're all kind of similar to this. And the big aversion was it looks too much like a music festival. It's the instruments and the music note. I guess that's a C depending on where it goes. And then the other one is a saxophone player, and the other one's a female vocalist. And so all of his concepts were very musical. And the reality is with 75 bands, 75 performance groups, and the reality, it breaks down to about 60 bands, and then 25 dancing or gymnasts or other types of magicians, other performers, let's say. And so it is kind of a music festival. I mean, we could really embrace it as that. If we hired bigger name bands, we could turn it into a music festival.
For about 15 years, Kathy Lee did all the posters. And,
For a long time.
and she did beautiful artistic posters.
She was also an Albany resident?
Yeah, she had a printing shop in Albany. She lived in Albany at one point, but lived in Oakland. And she had a print shop here. She's very talented. And the posters were works of art. Things like that, they're works of commerce. They're not really beautiful.
I'm just curious, do you know if she did the one on the left?
Quite possible.
Quite probably. Yeah.
I would also say that we have some differences of opinion inside whether we should be more artistic. There's a quality, a whimsical quality that the stroll has had over the years. And if it gets too commercial, you lose that. And that was one of the things that made it a special event.
I would like to applaud you for focusing on more local sponsors. I think that, I know that among my family and friends, a lot of them actually avoid Albany on the stroll day because they don't like the big crowds that come in from out of town, and they feel like it's lost that local feeling. Mm-hmm. And so the more we can get back in touch with the local businesses and the local, focusing on the local community, I think that would be great.
Yeah, that's what we, in 2013, when we did that survey, it was, pulling the periscope up and kind of seeing. The reality is this. If you come in from Livermore and have a great time at the stroll and have sushi, if you are not going to be coming back in within any time real soon, then you're not the ideal Solano Stroll candidate. The reality is we want people to come to the stroll who are in a position and who desire to come back frequently, because that's what we're trying to do.
I agree.
So we'll take another poll, see how we're doing. 2013 is kind of old, so. But thank you for those compliments, the feedback. And if they do avoid it, that's okay. They can always come back the next year.
I think they miss the local is the point, so.
That train started off small, and there's no backing it up now, but there's events like Dinner with Albany. In fact, went from 1 stage to 3 stages.
Yeah.
So things organically grow, and it's hard to back that up sometimes, so we're trying.
Well, it seems like you're headed back in the other direction, so I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we have 6 items. The city sidewalk program.
Yeah, so this was a request from the committee last month to do sort of to recognize the city council for their work on the sidewalk program. So I wrote up a recognition of a sort of appreciation that you can all sign if you're interested in passing, so I can read that. I'll go ahead and read it, and then you're welcome to discuss as you'd like. But
I have to go to another meeting, but I'd love to sign that.
yes, do you
I
have
am
a couple?
so appreciative of that the city is doing this. I really think it's a great idea. I wasn't so keen on the special tax for it because I think we should have been able to do it out of our normal funding, but I voted for it anyway. But I'm really happy to see the city doing this. I love this effort that the city's making to catch up on things that weren't done. I love the commitment to the 3-minute response time. I think these are all the things that make Albany government work well. So I'm on my way out, but
Okay.
I want to.
You want to sign it before I read it even? Are you sure?
Is there anything we need to vote on before? Oh, no, we have a quorum. Never mind.
It says they did a great job. All in favor? Aye.
Does it name any individual?
Opposed?
Does it name any individuals in it?
No.
Okay.
I would like to see it.
No, it's just my understanding that, yeah, I just was wondering. I don't want to give anyone, yeah.
It was a city effort, and the city deserves recognition. The
No,
reason why I asked to have it put on is so many times, that's the problem of working in the city. When you're doing everything right, nobody pays any attention to you because it's all working. But when you do things wrong, you'll get a whole crowd of people down here explaining. So I think it's worth taking a moment to thank the city when they're obviously doing something right. So when we do the parade every year and so on, we take the time, I usually MC, so we take the time to thank the emergency services, because if you dial 911 in Albany, before you hang up the phone practically after you've told them who you are and what the problem is, you can hear the sirens, and they'll be at your house. My son Christopher had a bad reaction to a bee sting, and there was a red stripe running up his arm. We called the police. By the time we called the police when it was here, and the fire. By the time it was here, you could hear the sirens coming. By the time it was here, they were knocking on the door. It took less than 3 minutes to get to our house, and we're on the other side of town. So when you do things right, we should stop and thank you.
Thank you.
Got it around.
Okay, bye.
Would you all like me to read it before you sign it?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay.
Wait till he leaves out of the room now.
Just say it. Todd knows why I ask.
The City of Albany Economic Development Committee recognition and appreciation of the city sidewalk program. Whereas sidewalks are the foundation of an effective pedestrian network, acting as critical links to the transportation network, providing a range of user access to commercial districts, schools, businesses, government offices, and recreational areas. And whereas safe and attractive sidewalks are beneficial to the community to improve livability, sustainability, and economic development through encouraging active transportation. And whereas the City of Albany sidewalk repair policy was adopted by the City Council in June 2016, and whereas Albany voters passed Measure P1 in November 2016, a parcel tax to repair the most damaged sidewalks in Albany. And whereas the City of Albany Public Works Department has begun effectively implementing the city's sidewalk program, and now therefore it be resolved that the Economic Development Committee does express its sincere appreciation of the City of Albany City Council and Public Works Department for its efforts to improve the city sidewalks.
I'll sign.
Sounds good.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
I guess you guys kind of voted. Chase, already got you to vote. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go with that.
Very quick vote.
Can I?
Okay,
May I,
so
sir?
we'll do decorations later or last.
Do you want me to just pass around?
Yeah, I was going to ask about the blue pen. So you're not the only one.
Sean, do you want us to wait for?
We'll wait.
Okay. Okay, so then we have the subcommittee structure.
This was a conversation from last time. You have several subcommittees that seem to not be meeting as much, and so it was a question of whether there were new priorities. This may have come out of committee member Chasey and Chair Montag's suggestion, so it may be something that you might want to wait till next time if
I'd
have the
like to
discussion.
propose that we postpone that discussion until we have more members here.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. next. Okay. The Economic Development Strategic Plan Implementation Update.
Yes, we are going to resume our work with the Planning and Zoning Commission to revisit two different sections of the code. One is commercial definitions, classifications, and permitting requirements, and the other is parking. We had a study session with them over the summer, and we anticipate coming back to them at the October meeting to further discuss this. So we've had one study session. This will be a second study session to kind of review some of the changes that they've directed us to make. So it's an ongoing process.
Can I ask for some clarification on something?
Sure.
So Christopher at some point was mentioned as being assigned to economic development, but I think that some committee members are under the impression that he's specifically assigned to do work for us, like that we would like to see done. But my impression was that he's just related because he's in the department, kind of, and not specifically assigned with a certain number of hours to our agenda.
Right, so Christopher, his official title is Associate Planner, and in that role, he's at our Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, he attends these meetings somewhat regularly, and in general, he processes planning applications, but we did, kind of in that capacity, want to direct small business owners, whether they're thinking of starting a business or they're an existing business, kind of have him be the ombudsman, if you will, so that if they do have an issue in some sort of regulatory way or they're just trying to get general information out of the city, he's that primary point person.
I think that's a very important role that we needed filled, but that clarifies things, and I think that there's been a couple comments among our committee that alluded to thinking that he was assigned to our agenda and that implementation plan and things like the marketing project that the long-term committees discussed and other projects, special events and things, but I don't think that he is assigned to do those events.
Yeah, I think within the
projects,
Community
correct?
Development Department, we all kind of wear multiple hats in terms of the implementation. It doesn't rest on any one staff person's shoulders. We all kind of take responsibility in the full implementation of the plan.
Okay.
One of the things that we've talked about as a chamber is really the chamber's responsibilities and the EDC's responsibilities kind of go hand in hand, especially with the overall objectives. Now, the city has, supported the chamber with, first it was Penelope and then Shelley, and Shelley just actually stepped down. So if we could have somebody from.
You're interested in having additional staff representation now that Shelley is no longer involved?
Absolutely. We have a bunch of volunteers. I mean, the hardest part about committees is, we can talk about all these things, but actually getting out there, beyond the border here
Sure.
and executing is
Great.
hard. It's hard for all of us because we're all full-time, but we do have
Right.
volunteers out there that
Okay.
are on the same page, so.
Great.
Okay. There's future agenda items, and then we can backtrack to the decorations if you're ready.
Sure.
So, okay. Anybody want to add anything to the next agenda?
I thought I had added parking to that some time ago. Just general parking, like not necessarily doing any sort of studies. I noticed recently on San Pablo where there are intersections, let's say by the Hotsy Totsy, two parking spaces were just converted to red zone there. Across the street from there is another red zone. So I've counted 10 spaces on San Pablo just this last week that have been converted to red zones. For safety reasons and obvious safety reasons, I know that if you approach a corner and there's a stop sign there, if there's a car parked there, especially an SUV or something, you may not be able to see around it and people walk out in front of, etc. But it's still the loss of parking, and it's still the reassignment of parking. And for a street that has, car repair facilities, appliance delivery facilities, parking is important. So I just wanted to bring that up again, that it seems that we're losing parking.
So if you've concern about if people are painting red curbs near the corner, I don't know the details, but I know that the city did pass a red curb ordinance related to visibility at corners. Is that correct? Do you have?
They did, although I think, from what I understand, this may be actually Caltrans.
Yeah, that's
That's-
exactly.
I don't think it's a local
what
effort.
it is,
Yeah.
and so it just seems to be there's a disconnection that's occurring, and again we have concerns. I think all of us have concerns about we want bicyclists and accessibility to the districts, but not at the cost of vehicle parking. I mean.
Yeah, I think these things are typically things that fall into the purview of the Traffic and Safety Commission, so it might be more appropriate there. I don't know, do you know if they have parking on their agenda anytime soon?
I don't think so.
I'm not sure that they do, but I think we can get some information on what Caltrans is doing, because I'm not super familiar with it.
I mean, it's just kind of one of those things. I mean, we discussed it earlier too, where there may be a parcel available by Target, but simultaneously the city is going to close off, well, the city of Berkeley would be closing off a primary artery to it. And these are things that people know. Hertz Equipment or Hertz Rent-A-Car opens up a place with parking around it and has lost a lot of its parking and is now paying a lot of parking tickets because of it too. So parking is an important thing. And
Maybe we want to somehow, just like we have the link to the Arts Committee, maybe we want to have more communication. Like, I don't know, read their minutes, for example, the Traffic and Safety Commission, like have more communication. Would that be helpful? Or is there a way to do that?
I guess. I mean, here's my own personal soapbox. I mean, recently at a city council meeting, they discussed banning flavored tobacco products and vaping products. And this was one of those situations where somebody just opened up a vaping store a year and a half ago and is wondering, well, am I being grandfathered into this? Or so they're, opening a business like Closet Karma at Solano and San Pablo to discover that your parking is slated to be a bus stop. It's just people that are opening businesses need to be aware of their environmental impacts, or the environmental impacts that they're going to experience from future projects that are already on the works somewhere, somehow, but seem to be a surprise when they come up at council meetings and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if I'm articulating my thoughts correctly, but parking is a problem, and I can name two businesses, Tanya Anglin Insurance and Closet Karma, who are both required to actually show that they have parking nearby, but then at the same exact time they were showing that they have parking, there was a plan to remove it in another division, another department. So it seems to me like all the committees should be meeting quarterly or something to kind of talk about these projects that may have a collateral impact. Just my 2 cents. 10 cents, I guess, now.
That's actually an interesting idea of how do you increase the communication between all the committees to have a more cohesive view of what's happening. I'm not sure how that would work. Maybe
It's
something-
stuff like, social economic justice is discussing rent review, and that's gone through. But there are realtors in town who manage properties who didn't really, so there's a lot of,
The minutes are all online, right? So maybe someone from our committee could volunteer to read minutes, read agendas, and then read the minutes afterward to keep basically like an updating. Someone would need to update us at each meeting with what everyone else is doing. Does that make sense? One of us-
And many of the larger items do go to council too, so you could also start with following what council's decisions are.
Or going to those meetings even. Maybe when we have a more robust showing of people, we can see if anybody wants to, I wouldn't mind going to a few city council meetings. I'm not sure I want to commit to all year long. But
You
I
can
was
also watch them online.
thinking, oh,
And sometimes on Channel 33.
they do a great job with the meetings. Jeremy's a huge asset, so, yeah.
they're monthly, right?
Twice a month.
Council's the first and third Mondays of the month.
That's 24, about 20 a year, including the holidays, right? So how many, there's 6 people on our committee? 7?
7, I think.
So if we all watch 3 a year,
I mean, I would commit to
So that-
traffic and safety. I've been kind of monitoring them anyway.
okay. So then maybe we could have an item an agenda item every meeting would be someone would present on what they learned from city council meetings. Like we would try to keep ourselves more, kind of like Twitter. Like you.
I think we need to make that a future agenda item to discuss and vote on.
What that looks like, yeah.
Another option would be, you could assign somebody to review the agendas some agendas may have items that seem to be very relevant to your committees and others may not. So you may just need to watch the items that are relevant to your committee. And when you're watching online, you can timestamp what portion of the agenda, so you can go straight to the portion of the agenda that is of interest to you.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, Nicole was pretty good about letting us know which ones were important, and Alan, you used to sometimes tell me which ones I should go to, but I don't know if you guys all see the agendas too, right? Maybe you could also be our, eyes and ears and give us a gentle nudge when it seems pertinent.
Well, we also do have cross liaisons, right? For instance, aren't you on the, going to the Arts Committee meetings?
I am, yeah. But, yeah, there seems to be so much going on, though. We could have somebody go to the city council meetings. That'd probably be a good idea if someone wants to invest the time. But 2 more meetings a month's a lot for one of us to do. Let's talk about it. Let's put it on the
Yeah,
agenda.
yeah.
Let's see what everyone's willing to do.
I didn't mean to be tangential, but parking is a concern, and every department seems to have something to do with it, but no.
Yeah.
I agree with you that parking has a huge impact on small businesses and big businesses. And it seems that in our efforts to be green, which I absolutely applaud, if we take away parking, the thought is that it encourages people to use other modes of transportation. But I agree that it does have a huge impact on people's businesses.
Okay. Sean, are you ready for holiday lights?
No, I had one thing, and I'm not sure if it's in the purview of the committee here, but Andrew Cohen, the owner of Mr. Dewey's Ice Cream, Cashew Creamery on Solano and Canes, is advocating really hard right now to get a parklet built in front of his shop.
Suzette and Ice Slice also would like one if there's room.
Yeah, he's got a plan. He drew up he has everything drawn up, and he's looking for obviously he's looking for assistance with that, guidance with it. But I'm sure he would be interested in presenting to the committee. If you guys, I don't know if that would be within our scope.
I don't know that we have the means or the power to make stuff like that happen.
I'm not sure.
We do have him tentatively scheduled to go to the Traffic and Safety Commission meeting on October 25th. So if you were interested in this, that would be a perfect opportunity to go to one of their meetings, and we'll put that item first so you don't have to sit through a fairly lengthy meeting. The last meeting last week went till 11, so we're going to try and make those, tailor those agendas a little bit. But we do, it is going to go on October the 25th, I believe, yeah.
October 25th?
October 25th.
What time?
Those meetings start at 7 p.m.
Okay, so now we are at holiday decorations.
Perfect. All right, so it's about that time, and the holidays are right upon us. So I want to talk about kind of the continuance of kind of developing our holiday lighting strategy plan on Solano Avenue. So this is something over the past 2 years, the City of Albany, the Berkeley Bid, the Solano Avenue Association, and the Albany Chamber have all, partnered up on the lighting strategy. We've noticed that Solano, is obviously a destination area, but we've been kind of far behind in, building the lighting excitement and holiday excitement, that ultimately drives holiday traffic to Albany, and of course that holiday traffic drives tax revenue. So in comparison, if you look at, areas like, we always bring this up, but if you look at areas like 4th Street, Park Avenue or Park Street in Alameda, they put up lights, and if you go there, late at night, there's people there shopping all throughout the night. So the ask would be to get the EDC's blessing from the city to sponsor up to $10,000 in holiday lighting. This is something that Nicole has actually been behind us on this for the past 2 years. We've cut our budget down tremendously. There are about 96 poles going up and down Solano Avenue. Berkeley bought quite a bit of the garlands and decorations 2 years ago, and they actually bought some over in Albany. So we had the responsibility last year is we put in about $28,000. So it was $10,000 that came from the city. And then the rest, came between the Chamber and the Solano Avenue Association was a big sponsor of that. So ultimately, is we want to, again, be able to build the plan to go beyond, like some of, all we have is just garlands, and that's pretty much ribbons. That's about it. But, if we're looking at technology, the cost of storage, and what I say about technology is actually looking at maybe upgrading into lighting. We don't have electricity on every poles, but again, with technology, there's, with LEDs, with solar powered, with battery operated stuff, there's, some good options that are out there. So, yeah. So that's the ask, and hopefully, we can get the EDC, behind that ask as well. Or anything else to add?
So what did we spend last year? Or did you spend last year?
We spent, it was about somewhere around like $28,000.
So for 10,000, you'll get more, you're saying mostly on lights, spent on lights.
Yeah, we're looking possibly some lights, some better decorations. The garlands are up pretty high, so again, there's more things that we want to do on Solano. And if we figured we spent about $550 on each pole when it came to the garland price, as well as with the installation. Installation price alone is about $250 per garland. That was with the company that we were using last year. We connected with another company who's actually looking at charging us at about $73 per lighting fixture. So that would save us quite a bit of money for us to divert into some decorations, some really good decorations. So
I definitely applaud these efforts, but I feel like, that as our committee, we can't do much more than say, yes, we support this, but I don't think that it's up to us to figure out funding and, authorize money to be spent and stuff.
yeah, all I'm asking is for a yes, we support this.
Yes, I support this.
Okay.
I think we definitely.
Absolutely.
So I have one quick question. The 96 polls, does that include Berkeley?
That includes Berkeley.
Okay, and how many do we have of the 96?
They paid for, I want to say 73, but they paid for some of ours. I'd have to look at it and look at the notes, but I'm guessing somewhere around.
Yeah, the division was equal. I mean, we really looked at it. There's areas where the business in front, the Berkeley businesses on Solano Avenue are part of a business improvement district where they're paying into a fee that's part of their business license. There's about 50 of those businesses who are contributing to the business improvement district. However, their sidewalk and their street is Albany. So they're actually paying for things that they can't possibly receive. And so that's kind of how the lighting worked out, where some of it went into Berkeley just slightly, but on one side of the street it went into Albany, but was paid for by Berkeley. It gets very complex. The Twin City thing is an asset and a challenge, of course.
Will any of these funds go to supporting decorations on San Pablo, or is this only for Solano?
It's only been on Solano so far. The hard part about San Pablo, of course, is dealing with Caltrans when it comes to anything, overhanging on the street. So,
But actually, if I could update that, and
Sure.
I could be wrong, I often am. The banners that you see on San Pablo were the offset of the lights that Solano got last year. So Shelley's thing was, well, you have to do something for San Pablo. And so that's where those banners came from. Caltrans has issues with lights on highways.
I vote to support the project.
thank you.
I'll second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ball is now in your court.
Good presentation.
Pass on the sentiment. Thank you.
That begs a question. There's usually Santa on Solano,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
So what is the
Absolutely.
date for that? Or has it been set yet?
What is the what?
The date for
The
that?
first 3 weekends in December.
Oh, okay.
So actually, no, this year's kind of weird. We're shifting 1 week, so the final weekend is basically Christmas Eve. It kind of falls weird, but
That's cool.
yeah, our volunteers loathed the idea, but felt it was best for the district to do that.
Are you doing the coloring book again?
Yes, expanding it. It's exciting stuff. Stuff that the stroll pays for. We wouldn't, as an association, be able to navigate a lot of what we do if it weren't for our flagship fundraiser. So,
I think we're done.
You wanna adjourn?
Oh, meeting's adjourned.
Very cool.
and thank you to the members of the public for
Yes.
sharing your time with us.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Ed Fields, if you don't know me. Any citizen can sign up on the City of Albany's webpage and get notified a few days in advance with the agenda of any of the council or committee or commission meetings. And so you can all sign up, and once a month in the case of the commissions, and twice a month for planning and zoning and city council, you get the agenda and you glance through it. It takes, 30 seconds. You go, no, nothing's interesting there. Or wait, that's happening on my street. I should show up. So, everyone on the committee can do that. It's pretty easy. Just go to the city's webpage and check which notifications you want to get.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, the
Thank
city
you.
does a great job with that.
Thank you.
Anybody? We're done?
Okay, adjourned again.
Thank you. Yeah, turned again around
guys.
two. Thank you.